Welcome to Healthy Births, Happy Babies, where we share tips, tools, and stories grounded in natural childbirth and parenting principles, so that instead of feeling overwhelmed and confused during this exciting time in your life, you feel safe, supported, and empowered in your childbirth and parenting journey. And now, here's your host, Dr. Jay Warren.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Healthy Births, Happy Babies. I am Dr. Jay Warren. I am the Family Wellness Chiropractor and the Wellness Care Coordinator here at the CAP Wellness Center. And today we have Kimberly Johnson here to talk with you about pelvic floor issues. Not only things that you can do to help yourself recover postpartum, but things that you can do during your pregnancy to possibly help prevent some of these pelvic floor issues. But before I introduce Kimberly to you, I want to take a moment, as always, to thank our sponsor, the CAP Wellness Center, who makes this podcast possible. The CAP Wellness Center in Encinitas, California, has assembled an incredible team of fully certified holistic healthcare professionals that offer the very best in prenatal and postpartum wellness services. We offer acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, yoga, lactation support services, and a wide variety of birth education classes to ensure that you are fully able to experience the power of birth. And now I would like to introduce to you Kimberly Johnson. Kimberly is a certified sexological bodyworker and a near-certified somatic experiencing practitioner. She's also a single mom, doula, Rolfer, and yoga teacher. She leads workshops internationally and virtually on the intersection of women's sexuality and spirituality, as well as holistic postpartum healing. After living in Brazil for 8 years, she now resides in San Diego, California, where she has a private practice specializing in birth injury, birth trauma, and sexual healing. Okay, and with that, I'd like to welcome to the podcast Kimberly Johnson. Kimberly, hi.
Hi, Jay.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today, and we're going to be talking all about pelvic floor issues. You are quite the expert in this area, and we heard a little bit about that in your bio that I introduced you to, but I just wanted you to take a moment before we dive into the topic to kind of share a little bit more about yourself and how you became interested in the work you're doing now.
I became interested in the work because I was my own experiment. So after I had a baby, I had a pretty severe tear to my pelvic floor, and I found myself in a situation where even though I was a yoga teacher and even though I was already a body worker for a long time, I wasn't able to heal myself with my own tools. And whenever I went looking for resources, especially online, I would look up, holistic healing, holistic postpartum, how to stay healthy postpartum. Everything was just thousands of entries on postpartum depression. And I was feeling depressed, but I knew that the depression I was feeling was because my relationships had radically changed after having a baby. My body was a mess. I couldn't really walk well. The inability to walk and the stress from that was causing difficulties in breastfeeding. And so there was just all these radical changes going on, and I was feeling really down about it. But I was frustrated by the fact that I realized, of course I'm depressed. Like, I'm pooping in my pants. Who wouldn't be depressed if, you can't really move well, you can't hold your own baby, it just is a lot of unexpected outcomes. And so I got interested in, I knew there had to be a better way. It couldn't just be that I had to live with that. And when I went to the medical doctor, I was told I needed a full pelvic floor reconstruction. And I just was not up for more surgery and more intervention in my pelvic floor. So I set out on a journey to figure out what actually was going on and how I could heal myself holistically.
And so where was that first step? Where did you jump into?
I was living in Brazil at the time, and I returned to a holistic pelvic floor physical therapist who had known before I went on the trip. along before I moved. And so I had actually had pelvic floor work before, and I felt like, okay, she's going to tell me. I was sort of feeling like maybe I was the worst case scenario. Maybe I'm like the worst that's ever happened.
Right.
So, especially after hearing the words full pelvic floor reconstruction. So I went to her to get an evaluation, and she assured me that I wasn't the worst case scenario. And from there, I went to Thailand for a few months, and I really got interested in how women are treated postpartum in other cultures, because I just felt like this is crazy, the lack of support and the lack of tribe. And so I went to Thailand, I went to Malaysia, I studied traditional Chinese medicine approaches, I studied Ayurvedic approaches, and then I found a modality called sexological bodywork, which was where I got the most healing. So in 3 sessions, my diastasis, which is a separation in the abdominal wall that I had, knit back together. And then in another session, my hemorrhoids reabsorbed because I had so much scar tissue in my pelvic floor that it was pushing the hemorrhoids out. And then the scar that I had was really softened up and became slack and not uncomfortable anymore. And so once I found that, combined with some somatic experiencing trauma resolution work, which helped me work through the trauma that I experienced in the birth itself and in the ensuing months with so many complications and so much frustration, that was kind of the magic pairing for me. And so that's the training that I pursued.
So all of those results you received in just 3 sessions?
Yes.
Wow, that is powerful. Much different than a full pelvic floor reconstruction surgery.
Yeah, which would have had its own ramifications and its own rehab schedule.
Right.
Right.
And you were doing this in conjunction with the other birth trauma work as well? Or did you find that after you'd had the body work done?
Well, the woman, Ellen Heed, who's my mentor and who I received the work from, she was actually doing a study on postpartum scar tissue remediation, and I was a part of that study. She's an extremely talented practitioner, so she had trauma presencing skills herself, but as a modality, I went, it's a 3-year training, I went back and studied the whole modality so that as a practitioner I could be more effective. But so yeah, there was some of that work, I'd say like sensate oriented and maybe even soul accessing work in the pelvic floor from what she was offering, because she's also a visionary craniosacral practitioner.
Okay.
But yeah, those 3 sessions, it really was miraculous. It was, but I find those results in giving the work myself. It doesn't take as much as we think it does when you're really listening to someone, you're listening to their story, you're listening to their body, and helping to reassociate some pieces that may have gotten left behind through the birthing process.
So adding in the emotional component as well as just straight body work, physical body work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's why there's many talented physical therapists out there. I think they're restricted because of timing sometimes. A lot of them have only half an hour to see someone, and my sessions are an hour and a half. But I think that just a physical therapy lens, from what I know, just from my clients who come in, I've had some clients who've had a year and a half of physical therapy and their prolapse hasn't gotten any better, or their painful sex hasn't gotten any better, and with 1 or 2 sessions I'm able to facilitate relief and a restoration of where the organs are sitting and stuff. So I know that part of that is just because I do have the capacity to do the emotional and, more importantly, nervous system recalibration work alongside with the body work itself.
Right. That's amazingly powerful results. And every woman's going to be different, I assume, but, much quicker results and much more long-lasting healing than just working on one level, on the physical level.
Sure. Yeah, because if there's anything I learned from my experience, it's that there really isn't physical healing without emotional healing, without spiritual healing. And in the reverse, too. Like, you can't just heal the story and not heal the body, too. So it's all those layers are coming together, especially in an event like birth that's so soul and life altering. It just affects women on every single level, and so every single level has to be witnessed and mothered in a way.
Right. No, so now in your work as a sexological body worker, tell us one more about that work, if there's details about it that we haven't gone into yet, but then also, like, what types of women are coming to see you? What kind of issues are you helping them with?
Okay. Sexological bodywork is a relatively new modality. It's from the early 2000s. And it's what allows me to touch genitals for the purpose of arousal and for the purpose of therapy or therapeutic results. So it includes scar tissue remediation, which could be from tearing, episiotomy, cesarean, gender reassignment surgery, plastic surgery, any of those things. And then it also includes working with everything you can think of that has to do with our reproductive and sexual health. So, including what I love too, though, is that I have a structural background. So I now have those skills together with the structure. So I can work if someone broke their tailbone during childbirth. I can actually help put their tailbone back in the right place, and or if the tailbone just got, completely twisted or torqued, it's, as you know, as a chiropractor, it's hard to do those adjustments externally.
Right.
And so now I'm able to do those adjustments internally, and they're very gentle. The work is very gentle. It's not what some people imagine, that I go in there and, crank the tailbone or something. It's very soft. A lot of times the tissue really just needs a listener. It needs to tell its story and unwind, and it's just sitting in that field and being present to it that allows for, together with heat, together with pressure, together with contact, that allows for the letting go. So I see clients with, I'd say the most common things I work with are prolapse, incontinence. Then I work with some things like interstitial cystitis, rectal sphincter tears, just general painful sex. Like, people will come in and say, my birth was fine. It was actually a great birth, but now every time I have sex, it's really pinchy, or it just feels weird, and I don't know why. And then I have other clients that are coming because they want to expand their range of sexual experience, and they don't even know what that might look like. They're just wondering, like, I know I'm in a very routinized sex routine, and I just know that it could be so much more than this, but I have no idea what it could be. I have other people who are healing from sexual trauma, and therapy can only go so far that doesn't include touch, when touch is the field where the trauma occurred. So I do a lot of boundary restoration and vocalization, really allowing women especially to find their voices and figure out what their desires are and what they want and how to state what they want. I work with couples in communication skills and touch skills, and I also do some prostate massage for people with enlarged prostates, or I'm also can work with erectile dysfunction. So that's kind of like the whole scope of sexological bodywork. And then my practice mainly consists of working with birth injury and birth trauma. Oftentimes those are connected to sexual questions, especially in the postpartum period when sex becomes completely different. And people are really trying to, if they've never found their sexual self before, they're really trying to find that sexual self. And if they had found their sexual self before, they're working with a redefinition of that. So tends to interweave.
And how do typically, women having those kind of issues, like it doesn't seem like something it's a sensitive issue, obviously. And so it might be a more difficult path to kind of navigate. Is it something that people are finding you through, say, their doctors, or their doctors not really even knowing about this type of work being even possible, and they're finding you elsewhere?
A lot of women are finding me through word of mouth, which I think, as you're saying, is expected, considering, it's like if your trusted girlfriend tells you you can trust this person and go to her and she helped me, then
right.
I can see how that would be more comforting. I am in a big project of outreach to OBGYNs, to pediatricians also, because I feel like a lot of women have so much anxiety postpartum, and it's really about them, but they take their babies really often to the pediatrician because that's how they're managing their anxiety. I've been reaching out to pediatricians, reaching out to therapists. I really feel strongly about the sexual healing work, because what I know is that the woman who arrives at the birth altar is the woman who had whatever her first sexual experience was, whatever her entry into bleeding was. That's who's arriving at the birth altar. So if I can get people and facilitate a deeper connection to their voice and to what they want before they give birth, it's so much easier for them to have the birth that they want. And then, the better the birth is, not always, but often the postpartum transition is easier.
So there's value in doing prenatally, doing work before even the birth to set it up in that way. That makes perfect sense.
Definitely. I mean, the ideal would be that women, if let's just say dream world, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Just like nowadays everyone knows who Ina May Gaskin is, and everybody knows, I should go to a childbirth education classes, and birth matters. I think most people know that. The kind of birth my child has matters.
Yes.
Hopefully 20 years from now, women will also receive and understand that their own gynecological self-understanding matters, so that all of these things, painful periods, endometriosis, difficulty conceiving, is happening from an embodied space. Not like all these things are happening to me, but actually I know my body. And part of knowing it is mapping it. And really, right now, women receive pelvic touch, genital touch, either from the doctor, which is very abrupt usually, like here's the speculum, put it in, take it out, it takes all of 10 seconds, there's not a lot of conversation or presence, so you have that super clinical, or you have the sexual where it, some women have a self-pleasuring practice, but usually women's sexuality is really defined with the other, the person whom they're having sexual relationship with. So the space that I work in is between personal, intimate, sexual, and detached, removed clinical. It's like, no, this is just your body. There's nothing shameful about it. There's really nothing weird about it. People get massaged all over the rest of their body. It's almost, to me, it's almost weird that, you get a massage and it's like, avoid everything but like the nipple, the breast tissue around it, and the genitals and your butt. Like, oh, maybe avoid it. Gives us all these recurring messages that there's something wrong with our genitals, that there's something inherently dangerous, that we got to hide it. So when women, I'd say between 16 and 18, as an introduction to themselves before or whenever women are going to choose, girls are going to choose to be sexually active, it would be so helpful for them to have a living knowledge of their own anatomy. I can't tell you how many women I work with that are in their 30s or 40s who've never looked at themselves with a hand mirror. And I think that every woman should see themselves before they give birth so that they know if it is different afterwards. Because so many women feel so different that they assume that things are really bad. And then when they actually look, it's not as bad as they thought. So, but there has to be a reference point. So if women had an introductory, like embodied sexual education in their teenage years, and then preconception, so that they know what they're working with before the pregnancy process, and then a birth rehearsal. So between the 37th and the 40th week, there's somebody else doing the perineal tissue stretching, showing you where your pushing muscles are, showing you and allowing you to feel, this is what fecal pressure feels like. This is what anal pressure feels like. This is what vaginal pressure feels like. This is how the baby's going to come down the canal. This is how big the opening is. And that women can feel it expand and then feel it go back, so that mental obstacle is not there, like I'm going to stretch out and it's never going to go back and sex is never going to be the same. But they actually can feel that their tissues expand and then their tissues go back. And then, of course, postpartum, it's just so much easier because they already have a visual reference point. They already have a sensate reference point. And so, you know, in my case, it was really disconcerting because I knew exactly how to activate my pelvic floor muscles, but my nerves were torn. So I couldn't, my brain would send the message, but the muscles wouldn't actually do it, which is part of why it was so disconcerting and upsetting, because it was like, this is bizarre that my body's not following at all what I know how to do.
Right.
So it's not like any of these things give a guarantee, but it definitely, that is what allowed me to know I can heal this myself. It may be hard. It may take a long time, but I know that I can do it. I can regrow those connections.
Right. And, you know, from everything that you said at the beginning of our conversation around how to heal postpartum, shows what's possible for someone that might be listening right now that might be going through those things, and knowing there's, you know, some avenues to pursue for true healing. But then this last part of the conversation is just even more exciting to me, to think of the work that can be done beforehand to really allow the whole birth experience to be even more powerful. But then also prepare for the birth of the baby to be that much more peaceful and safe for the little one, but then also not create as much trauma that then might have to be worked with later on down the line. So in a really proactive sense, it's participating in a totally different way.
Definitely.
Right. And something you said at the beginning of the conversation, I kind of want to finish up with, and you talked about tribe. When you said that word, it just really resonated with me, and it sounds like all of this calls for building of a different type of tribe, or just a tribe around this. Is that something that you're involved with presently that women listening can become a part of?
Well, I have a bit of an online tribe at magamama.com, which is my website. And if you sign up on the website, you get an audio of an pelvic floor visualization and how to activate. So it's kind of like an elaborate Kegel and a decent Kegel, because I find that women come to me and they're like, I've been doing 500 Kegels a day and nothing's helping. So obviously it's not, women and doctors don't even know exactly what a Kegel is. And the Kegel is not the answer to everything. So anyway, if you sign up on my website, you'll get an audio recording. It's about 20 minutes that leads you through each part of your pelvic floor and how to access it.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
Mm-hmm. The original question was about tribe. So, you know, I live in San Diego, and this is where I'm from. I was living away for about 20 years, but now that I'm back, I'm really trying to be a support for, I'm a doula myself, but be a support for the doulas, be a support for the midwives and the doctors, because the postpartum care is really challenging from the healthcare system point of view, and it's a little bit of a black hole in women's health. So I'm just trying to educate and get the word out there for the kind of care that women really need. And what happens is women feel really high maintenance when they're asking for what they actually need, because what women need postpartum is a whole lot. And our culture is not set up for it. We get, most women get 6 weeks to 3 months. Fathers don't even hardly get anything. I think like a lot of fathers get 1 week or something. And so, you know, a lot of the difficulty that's caused is really because of isolation. So I'm, you know, thrilled to be connected with the CAP Wellness Center. And, you know, I know that I tell the women that I work with, you know, you can just go there and sit there with your baby. You can go to the breastfeeding group. It doesn't matter if you have breastfeeding problems. Just go and sit with other moms and let somebody else hold your baby for a little while. And, you know, sit there long enough until you feel comfortable to ask a question or to express what's really going on with you. So yeah, just trying to build a local tribe here where women feel supported.
Right, and get what they need, as just exactly as you said. And I think the movement that's coming about is one organically coming from the women that are realizing they need more than what they've been offered and trying to search it out, and then hopefully finding people like yourself that can provide that support, or at the very least guide them along a way that to get the support that they need. So I will definitely, I'll put all of the links that you had just talked about to your website and how to sign up for the audio into our show notes. So those of you listening, it's in the show notes of the podcast that you're listening to now. We'll also have a website page dedicated to this conversation. So all the links will be available there, and how we can get in touch, or how you can get in touch with Kimberly if you want to ask her more questions or become one of her clients. So to finish up, Kimberly, I wanted to ask 2 other questions. One is for the moms, and one is for the babies, or maybe the unborn babies that are listening to this podcast right now. So the first one is for the moms that are listening right now. What one thing would you like moms listening right now, or moms to be, to take to heart and really just hear and take in right now?
I would like moms to try to put on their long-term vision cap. So it's so seductive. Our culture is so seductive with the get your body back and get into your pre-pregnancy genes and try to be try to get back to who you were before. And there's this whole evolution that's actually really beautiful into motherhood and into becoming a new woman, and all of the healing and integration, it takes a while. So if you're looking from a physical point of view, it's like, don't judge yourself after 3 months or 6 months. Don't even think about how much you weigh until like a year after you have your baby, and be very gentle with yourself and really think about the long term, what you want in the long term. Is it worth it to go for a run even though you have a diastasis and your pelvic floor doesn't feel quite right because you really need to lose the weight, or you really need to get the adrenaline going or whatever? Because a lot of times what happens is there are costs later on. And so if you can really just give yourself the space and the time and realize that, yes, you will return to a version of yourself that is recognizable, but it does take time, and it takes longer than we would like it to, and longer than society tells us it will.
Right. Well, thank you for that. And the other question is for the babies. You know, that there may be one pearl of wisdom or something that if you could whisper into their little ear to take to heart as well, what would that be?
I think it would just be, we need you. Yeah, we need you to come.
Great. And with this information, hopefully you'll be coming that much more safely and peacefully and into a mama's arms that's more healthy and happy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for everything you've shared today. There's a lot of information that we shared. Again, go to the show notes, connect with Kimberly. She's obviously, you've just heard, a wealth of information, and we probably only just scratched the surface of it. So Kimberly, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and your inspiration.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Okay. We'll see each other soon, and hopefully we can have you back to dive in deeper.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about this episode and other natural childbirth and parenting topics, please visit us at capwellnesscenter.com or message us on our Facebook page with any questions you might have. We here at the Cap Wellness Center look forward to helping you and your family be as happy and healthy as you can be.